Well, first up, the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta yesterday announced plans to establish a 5-member committee consisting of prominent financial services professionals to lead extensive stakeholder engagements across all the key segments of the financial sector as part of moves to protect the system. There have been concerns the sector could be hit following speculations of debt restructuring under an IMF program. Although the Finance Minister has pointed out that no agreement has been reached with the fund, he gave assurances that the financial sector will be protected. Take a listen to a press conference from yesterday.
A 5-member committee consisting of prominent financial services professionals will lead extensive stakeholder engagement across all the key segments of the financial sector: banking, asset management, pensions, and insurance. The announcement of the committee members will be made in the coming days, and they will immediately get to work to engage key stakeholders in the financial services sector. Additional to ongoing engagements of civil society organizations, social partners, labor employers and faith-based organizations, academia, industry professionals, and the leadership of Parliament. We welcome all contributions to this great public debate, but we must be careful to build and not to tear down our nation. Ladies and gentlemen, we will leverage on our strengths to rebuild the economy, focusing on our productive sectors. Initiatives such as the Youth Start program that will provide 1 million jobs over the next 3 years will support entrepreneurs with loans to build their capacity to create more jobs and realize the President's vision of a Ghana beyond aid and an entrepreneurial nation.
All right, banking consultant Christian Techijan joins us on phone to discuss this further. What's the reaction from players at your end to this assurance from the Finance Minister and the creation of a 5-member committee to lead engagements with stakeholders following negotiations with the IMF? Can you hear me?
Hi, I can hear you, Daryl. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you. Did you hear the question?
Come again, please.
Yeah, so I was just picking your reaction to the creation of the 5-member committee by the Finance Minister to lead engagements with players from that sector following negotiations with the IMF and his assurances that the sector will be protected amid speculations of debt restructuring.
Yes, absolutely. I think it's very important that government takes these steps. The banking sector hasn't really been that stable. We went through a lot somewhere around 2016, 2017. There was confidence that was restored. Everything is going on very well now. We have now a robust banking system, but with the refinancing of debt, especially the long-term ones against government, it's important that government reassures the public. We've had calls, especially from some of the non-bank financial institutions, who are quite agitated. They are not sure whether the short-term investments in treasuries of the government are also going to be affected. And there's been a lot of concern. And if we look at those sectors that actually contribute to the long-term bonds of the government of Ghana, the insurance sector is part. Those in the pension sector are also part. There are a number of other sectors and institutions that have actually purchased the government long-term bonds. So it's important that the stakeholder engagement that is also going to involve them is important so that everybody's hearts will be put at rest, so there wouldn't be any level of agitation coming from the stakeholders that these decisions do really affect.
Is there any way... Apologies, we had to sort out an audio problem, but I hope you can hear me now, Christian, if you're still on the line.
I can hear you.
Yeah, I was just asking if there was any way the financial sector could escape being hit by the outcome of the negotiations with the IMF? Because, I mean, the fear has been about debt restructuring and the impact. So if we don't end up with a debt restructuring measure, would the financial sector escape being hit somewhat, do you think?
Yes. At the moment, Ghana's debt to GDP is about 84.6%. And debt levels are actually unsustainable. And in the short to medium term, at least in the next 3 years, Ghana is expected not to have anything from the international capital market. So whatever borrowings that government has to do will have to be done locally. And with the IMF also coming in place, their main objective is to give policy credibility to the government of Ghana. They want to put Ghana's debt in a manageable platform where we know that whatever it's falling due in terms of government obligation are going to be paid. But at the moment, our cash flows are low. We cannot really meet those demands as and when they fall due. So it's important that the financial sector, which is also, I would say, the biggest contributor to the government's treasuries when it comes to the long-term bills, are involved in this. So there is no way the financial sector can actually stay away from this because they are the biggest contributor. And mind you, some of these institutions are also acting for some clients of theirs. And so assuming a client has purchased a bill of about 2 years with an interest of, let's say, 18%, and it's expected that maybe in about a year, the person is expecting the principal plus the interest, and it is not forthcoming, it's going to be a very dire situation for such institutions. So it's important that we put all of these stakeholders together, and most importantly, education and communication with regards to these pragmatic measures that government is going to put in place is actually communicated properly, and people get to understand in a better perspective how this whole thing is going to work out. If we don't manage this well in terms of the communication that is going to go out there, it's also going to be very dire because people might not really understand properly. They might think that the inability of that institution to actually pay those obligations as and when they are falling due might be due to liquidity challenges pertaining to that particular institution. Meanwhile, it is a government decision and something that the IMF is actually impressing upon the government of Ghana to be able to put its debt levels at appreciable levels where it will be sustainable.
All right, we'll leave it here. Thank you so much for your time. Christian Techijan there, he is a banking consultant speaking to us on the Finance Minister's press conference yesterday and assurances that the financial sector will be protected. Now, commercial banks have thrown their weight behind moves by the Bank of Ghana to deny individuals access to future credit facilities for deliberately refusing to register their SIM cards under the ongoing national SIM card registration exercise with the intention of avoiding repayment of loans through mobile money platforms. The central bank, in a statement, indicated that data of all mobile money loan customers are domiciled in the databases of credit bureaus, hence failure to repay such loans will attract negative repercussions on borrowers' credit. Philip Oredo is Managing Director of Cowbank PLC.
I think it's a good call from the central bank because it's about time we sort of institute some sort of rights credit culture within the economy that we have. We always keep talking about bank credits for facilities, the cost of credit being high, and one of the reasons underpinning this is a level of non-performing loans within the sector, the financial service sector, and we see this seeping through to the micro sector in terms of people taking credits through the Momo transaction. So if this is a measure the central bank is putting up to enhance the credit culture within the economy, then I think it's a right call for them to do.
Next, government has announced the cylinder recirculation policy set to kick-start in parts of the country by the end of the year. This comes after the policy was introduced as a stopgap measure following the atomic junction gas explosion saga in 2017. Speaking at the Ghana International Petroleum Conference, Chief Executive Officer of the National Petroleum Authority, Dr. Mustafa Hamid, said government is determined to make the model a reality. But LPG marketers are not happy about this move and are asking for the interest of businesses to be protected. Vice President Gabriel Kumi joins me on Zoom to discuss this further. You think the cylinder recirculation model does not protect the interests of businesses?
We haven't said that. We are only asking government and MPAs to ensure that the current players who have built the industry over the years are properly taken care of in an attempt to introduce cylinder recirculation. I did hear the MPA chief executive say that we are going to start piloting cylinder recirculation by the end of the year. I mean, that tells you that the pilots we did in 2018, 2019, 2020 didn't work. And that was when we were advising that we should take our time in implementing this policy. But we were not listened to at the time. And now we are going back to the drawing board and start the pilot all over again. We spent a lot of taxpayers' money on those pilots that we did in 2019, 2020. And if we are going to start another pilot, it means that all that we did has gone down the drain. And it's all because of the rushing nature with which we did those pilots. LPG is being sold in Ghana. We are not in a green field where there's nothing on the ground. We have a lot of investment that has gone down the drain. We have a lot of employment in the sector. If government is coming up with a new policy, it's important that we take our time. We don't rush through the things and then waste money like we have done in the past. We are only urging MPA to take the necessary measures to ensure that this time around we succeed. We have, as we've always said, we have no problem with government policy. If government thinks that is the way to go, we are not opposing government on the policy level. But then the details of the policy, the house is where we have a problem. So, but we are very hopeful that Mustafa Hamid and his team will take the necessary, will use what has happened in the past as a guide to ensure that we don't rush through this program and do it in such a way that we are not going to waste the taxpayers' money on these things.
Well, as I understand it, this policy is to help stop another gas explosion disaster, isn't it?
Well, that is what it's supposed to be. That is of course. Admittedly, that policy in terms of safety is safer than the current system that we have in place. But it depends on how you do it. If you don't do it well, you may end up even aggravating the situation. So we are urging that we take our time. We shouldn't rush as if within the next 1 year, cylinder recirculation must come into fruition and all that. We should take our time and do it systematically and gradually and drive the current players. As I did indicate, this is an industry that employs over 7,000 direct labor already. This is an industry that has seen millions of Ghana cedis on the ground. So by this policy, you are not introducing a new industry. You are only trying to apply a new strategy to an existing industry, an industry that has existed over the past 25 to 30 years. We are not on a green field where you just move in and do things and get everybody on board. No. There are systems in place. There is a need for us to gradually introduce cylinder recirculation and eventually switch off the current system and then fully turn on the cylinder recirculation model. So we are urging government and the MPA to be very, very, very cautious. We've wasted over 100 million on the pilots that we did in 2019, 2020. That has gone to waste. At that time, we cautioned that the way we were going about it, there was no way we were going to succeed. But our caution was just pushed aside, and we did what we did, and we are where we are today. So this time around, let's be cautious. Let's take our time. Let's do things in a very systematic manner so that there's peace in the industry.
Okay. Thank you so much, Vice President of the LPG Marketers Association, Gabriel Kumi there. Let's turn to other stories. The Ghana Tourism Authority has rejected claims that its disbursement of the $10 million grant for small and medium enterprises is politically motivated. This comes after some businesses within the tourism space accuse the authorities of engaging in politicking in the disbursement. According to Chief Executive of the Tourism Authority, Kwesi Ajiman, the criteria for the disbursement is transparent.
There are three different grants that have been pushed out. The first one was done by Ernst & Young. Ernst & Young is one of the leading international auditing firms. They were in charge. The second one was done by the Ghana Enterprise Agency. People got it. This one is being done with a partner, Logicel. They have built a partner platform. For example, as I sit here, I don't have access to the platform, so I don't even know who has applied. But I know that the data will tell you that X number of people. But as to whether it is Company A, Company B, there's a technical committee, and then there's a grant management committee chaired by people outside the ministry, outside political circles. We have a professor at the University of Ghana who chairs it. We have one of the leading financial institutions, MD, as a member of the committee. We have two operators, the president of the Hotels Association as a member, the president of the Tour Operators Union of Ghana as a member. So I don't know how else anybody can influence decisions, but it's fine for people to sometimes try and play politics with these things. For me, the focus is people who are applying Ghanaians. Do they have a legitimate business? Is the business going to impact the industry? I mean, if you go to, for example, Bisa Brewer Museum, it's one of the beneficiaries of the grant the first time. In Takoradi, Kwawu of everybody knows Kwawu. So if Kwawu gets a grant, will you say it's political? If you go to Menshia, the Menshia Museum is the #1 visitor site within the southern sector of the country. They applied for a grant. If Menshia Museum gets a grant, it's political. If you go to Afaja to both Bleji and the other side, the Afaja side and Bleji side, both of them got this grant. Are they political? So let's focus on the benefits to the industry. We need size to be upgraded.
Now, the European Union has invested 132 million euros in improving sustainable agriculture in Ghana. According to the EU ambassador to Ghana, Echad Razali, the support to the agri sector is hinged on 3 pillars which seek to ensure that Ghanaian farmers adapt to climate change as well as adopt innovative approaches that do not contribute to climate change. He spoke at a roundtable forum organized by the EU in collaboration with the German corporation.
Rural livelihoods in Ghana are facing the increasing consequences of climate change and degradation. To cushion Ghana's food inflation against these consequences and increase self-sufficiency, the European Union is investing 132 million euros in various projects. Echad Razali is the EU ambassador to Ghana.
And the European Union is a very big actor in Ghana when it comes to agriculture. We have an ongoing programs of 132 million euros in Ghana, which seeks to address 3 pillars. First pillar is linked to infrastructure, irrigations, for example, access road, we call them feeder road for the products to access markets. The second pillar is linked to the competitiveness, to the improvement, increasing of the yields and the production. And the third pillar is linked to the regenerative practices. Because to some extent, the former practices have depleted the soil. The soils have been washed out by erosion, so on and so forth. So this is, I would say, an holistic programs, 132 million euros in order to address those issues.
Development Corporation of the Embassy of Germany, Ramona Simon, emphasized the need to invest in agriculture to slow the rate of climate change. According to her, agriculture is the solution to climate change.
Like the enormous raise of costs for imported fertilizers are severe problems farmers also in Ghana currently face. At the same time, climate-related disasters such as droughts and floods are big threats to agricultural production. Flooding, for example, comes only after epidemics as the most severe natural disaster in Ghana. Especially in the northern parts of the country, which are the most vulnerable ones when it comes to climate change effects, this calls for sustainable solutions to build an economically as well as ecologically resilient agricultural system.
Nafisa Mahama, a farmer and an agricultural extension agent at Wa West District, lamented about the over-reliance of farmers on primitive activities that affect the environment. She highlighted some sustainable ways of farming.
I thought it necessary to inform my farmers to do in order to sustain their lands, or at least reduce this climate change kind of things. One, the minimum disturbance of the soil is a factor that I preach day in, day out. That the continual turning of the soil over years is something that is affecting our cropping. And another thing I do preach to my farmers is the retention of their crop residue. That is when it comes to them burning it. I advise them after harvest, you then burn your crop residue. And another thing I advise my farmers to do is the issue of this crop diversification.
The roundtable discussion was themed, how can we adapt agriculture to climate change in Ghana?
Now, Cocoa Board is pursuing the development of artisanal processing of cocoa into chocolate. Ashanti Regional Administrator of Cocoa Board, William Serebo Prempe, says the processing industry generated more revenue in cocoa across the world. He touts the benefits of cocoa to the health of society and wants stakeholders to ensure the sustainability of the crop. There's more in this report.
Though Ghana is one of the largest producers of premium quality cocoa, local value addition is low. As a result, the full benefit of the commodity has not been realized. Ashanti Regional Administrator of Cocoa Board, William Kwawu Prempe, says his outfit has seen its huge market. Liaisons have been made with industry stakeholders to enable local chocolatiers to take up market opportunities by adding value to their products.
Over time, we knew products from cocoa as just chocolate and pebbles, chocolate and the hard pebbles, but there's been a lot of evolutionary trends. Now, some of our staff go to Switzerland to learn a lot of things. Now we have even new companies that are turning cocoa chocolate into different shapes. So we want to appeal to all kinds of clients so that it will go beyond just chocolate bar and pebbles. At the end of the day, we want to catch the market so that our hope is that in the future we might not have to depend so much on the outside market, where the consumption will be in Ghana, right from cradle to the time we die.
Mr. Serebo Prempe was speaking at a health walk to mark the Cocoa Day celebration of the Ghana Cocoa Board. This forms part of Cocoa Board's 75-year anniversary celebrations under the theme Cocoa Board at 75, Sustaining Our Environment, Wealth and Health. The cocoa sector remains promising following the strategic programs introduced to increase productivity, enhance the welfare and living standards of cocoa farmers, and support the growth of domestic cocoa processing and value addition. But the Ghana Cocoa Board has expressed worry about the diversion of fertilizer meant for cocoa farmers for other purposes, an act that hurts the government's effort to make the commodity available to farmers.
If we, the natives of Ghana, do not become watchdogs for Ghana, a lot of cocoa, or whether cocoa beans or fertilizer, will go out. So if we find some people are a bit suspicious, we can just, upon a tip-off, when you alert us, we also collaborate with the main security agencies, then we have them arrested. Until we Ghanaians alert the security, this thing might be going for a very long time.
This year's Cocoa Day celebration will be climaxed at the Grand Derba at Suhum in the eastern region.
Yeah, this is a prelude to the main thing, which starts from 28 September at Suhum. 8 September to 1st October, that's when we'll be doing the main 70th anniversary at Suhum. Yes, and there's health talks, there's cooking competition. I think on 1st October, the president himself will be there. So this is a prelude to the main program.
Mona Lisa Frimpong reporting.
All right, that's our bulletin this afternoon. Thanks for watching, everyone. You can always check out myjoyonline.com/business for more news. We leave you with an update on the currency market. Stay tuned.